Hi, everybody. I'm Ariana Rabinovich in New York City. I'm a yoga teacher, strength trainer, co-founder of a stretching company here in New York City called New York Stretch, and founder of Yoga Research and Beyond, and now co-host of the Yoga Research and Beyond podcast.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jules Mitchell. I live in Las Vegas, and I primarily teach biomechanics to yoga teachers. My business is mostly thought-provoking continuing education and advanced teacher trainings, again, for yoga teachers. And I am now co-host to the new podcast, or the revamped podcast, Yoga Research and Beyond.
2.0. Or maybe, I don't know, the podcast has gone through so many iterations. This might be 3 or 4.0, actually.
Like my Science of Stretching webinar. I keep adding a number at the end.
There you go.
It's a good sign.
Things change and we have to adapt. Yeah. So yeah, this is episode 64, technically. And I started this podcast back in, I think it was 2017. And the catalyst for that was that I wanted to offer another viewpoint or lean into alternative viewpoints, alternative for yoga at that time being more scientific based, because I was in my own experience of yoga steeped in certain lineages and certain subjective experiences and teachings of yoga. And the more that I learned in my process of getting certified as a yoga teacher, I was really interested in the sciences and anatomy, biomechanics, and eventually the research. And the podcast started also from an intention of wanting to share and engage with other practitioners and other professionals in different movement and wellness disciplines and fitness disciplines, whatever you want to call it. And I spoke to Pilates teachers, massage therapists, physical therapists, rolfers, strength trainers, people that I was really fortunate to speak to, that sometimes I look back on the list and I'm surprised, oh yeah, I had a really great conversation with that person who I respect and have read their material, and grateful to have done that. And then I started, also with Jules's help, started the Yoga Research and Beyond research education platform, where I have a group of people that we summarize research, almost the Cliff's Notes of yoga research. If you're familiar with Cliff's Notes, might be a generational thing. It's basically shorthand, short versions of really complex material. And I wanted to bring that into the conversation for yoga teachers, because I was just so surprised and happy to see that there was so much research out there, and what a great tool and resource that could be for yoga teachers. I didn't know I was opening a can of worms for myself and for other teachers, because the more I learned about it, I learned that the research wasn't always great quality, or you couldn't always get immediate answers for questions on how to be a great teacher and how to really help people, because I know that's what we all want to do. But the process is and was and will continue to be gratifying and mind opening and humbling and challenging. And this part of the podcast is a continuation of that, leaning into the research more. For a while, Jules and I did some episodes where we were talking, really diving deep, getting into nitty gritty, very intricate specifics about many papers. And I don't have time for that anymore. And I don't know if people would want to listen to that. So we want to keep it light and engaging, and just highlight some interesting things that we find in certain papers to get you all talking about, interested in research, not necessarily coming to, incredible conclusions that answer your questions, but it will definitely shape how you work and how you think as a teacher.
Yeah. Good intro. As Ariana said, in the old version, we would look at a single paper in a single podcast long form and really break down the entire paper. And that's a fascinating thing to do. And I actually do have time for that, not here, but I do that a lot in my teacher training, and I do that a lot in my mentoring program. But one of the things that I've discovered through that process of mentoring people through reading research is that people just aren't comfortable with a lot of the process, a lot of, of course, the statistics, but just the process, the conversations. They think because they're researchers, they have this massive authority of knowledge and know everything. And so I've really put a lot of time into just looking at a small little part of a study and seeing how you can learn from that. And that's what I think we want to do here. It's not about looking at the whole study and what conclusions we can make and how you can take the title of a study and put it on Instagram and say, look what they found. Because when you start digging into the paper, you realize that the result is often less conclusive than you might think. And that's part of the process of research literacy, is to really understand what is the question they're asking and how effective are the methods in getting to that answer. And so I want this podcast to be a learning tool where you don't walk away saying, dark chocolate makes you lose weight. That's not what I want you to walk away from on this podcast. It's more like, oh, how interesting. Why would they study dark chocolate and weight loss? What is the history of that? What do we know? What do we don't know? So you really start thinking about the questions instead of looking for answers to the questions. That's the main goal here. And the one thing I would like to point out is that we will not always review the highest quality papers. I think that surprises people a lot in my trainings. I sometimes have you review mediocre or lousy quality papers because there's a lot to learn in those too. Again, if we're looking at the paper for a conclusion, throw those out. But if you're looking at the paper to understand how research works, they can often teach you more because you start becoming skeptical and you learn how to think, oh, well, that was a flaw in the study design. If there are no flaws, then you don't get good at identifying flaws. So we will have a combination of papers. And again, we're not here to give you the conclusion. We're here to help you learn how to think about research.
Yeah, that's a good point about not always including high quality studies, because there is, exactly. There's a lot to learn from the low quality. And there are just so many low quality studies out there, unfortunately.
There are more low quality than high quality for sure. And just so to be clear,
it can be, go ahead.
Doing research is hard. So it's expensive. You run into problems, especially doing research on people, and so we'll highlight all of those. I have experience doing research, so I can, throughout the podcast, throughout the future episodes, give some little vignettes about that. We're not doing it to be critical. We're doing it to help you understand. This is all for education.
Yeah. It also helps me. The more I read it, the more it helps me, because it's always this process. And it's also, to me, it's been like learning a new language, which I do like to learn. I'm interested in language, so that's fun for me. But getting accustomed to, there is some terminology to get used to. The statistics, that's not a language I'm trying to learn. I tend to glance over statistics, but there are some things I can gather from it. But it's all helpful, and the more I do it, the better I get at it. And I often say, if I can do that, I think that anyone could do it. It's just a matter of practice.
Yeah. We encourage you, if the papers are available to the public, we encourage you to read the paper along with us as we discuss it. Maybe read it before and then hear our discussion and see if you came up with those things, or wait and read it after, whatever works for your learning. This is really just us sharing our passion to help you be more confident.
Oh, let me say one more thing about why I had to stop doing it.
Why you had to stop doing the original podcast?
Okay. The podcast, yeah. Even though I continued reviewing research for the platform, it was just time and life. I was going through some intense personal changes in my life, divorce, moving. I had to focus on my daughter as well, and huge life changes, and something had to give. I was putting so much time into the podcast, into the format that I had before. And it got to the point where I just wasn't motivated to put that time in anymore. And so Jules approaching me at first to start this up again, I was like, no, I can't I can't even think about doing that again. But this approach is just so light that I feel like I'm excited genuinely to be doing this again. And I'm so excited to be doing this with you, Jules. So, here we go.
Yeah. Our plan really is to call each other up and be like, hey, have you seen this paper? Let's jump on a call and talk about it for 20 minutes. And that's the plan here. We hope it works for you because it's working for us.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we will end. We're looking forward to future. We'll see you on the next episode.
All right.